Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something that's probably top of mind if you're navigating your 30s personal finances.
Yeah.
We've looked through a lot of the thinking out there to bring you, well, what seem to be the crucial insights, things that can really set you up.
The 30s are such an interesting time, financially speaking. You've likely moved past just, surviving paycheck to paycheck, like maybe in your 20s.
Right.
And now you're facing these bigger goals, maybe buying a home or thinking about family and retirement. Well, it's starting to appear on the horizon, isn't it?
Exactly. And it feels less abstract. It's not just about potentially earning more now either. It's really about using that extra earning power strategically. Time is still very much on our side, relatively speaking, and this is really when compound interest starts to, well, show its potential. You can actually see it working.
Absolutely. You hear experts call the 30s a kind of make-or-break decade financially, and I think there's truth in that. The habits you build now.
Or the ones you don't build.
Precisely. The decisions you make, or maybe the ones you keep putting off, they can have a huge impact down the line, really shape your future.
Okay, so let's dig into that. Why this decade? Why are the 30s so financially important? What's really going on here?
Well, it's a convergence of a few things, really. Like we touched on, your income, it tends to become more stable. Maybe it's increasing more consistently than before.
Okay, more earning potential from career growth.
Exactly. You've got more experience, more leverage, perhaps. And that means you actually have the capacity now to shift focus, from just covering the bills to actively building some wealth.
So it's that real shift in mindset from survival mode to, okay, let's make a plan. Let's build something.
That's it. You're probably looking at those big life events, buying property, kids, maybe further education, things that need real financial planning.
Yeah.
And crucially, any money you invest now, it just has so much more time to grow. It sounds obvious, but the impact is huge. Think about it this way. Even a fairly small amount invested regularly in your 30s. It has decades to benefit from compounding, much more than if you start the same thing in your 40s.
And it's interesting, you don't necessarily need huge sums to start, do you? We hear about things like systematic investment plans, SIPs, maybe just putting aside, say, €8 or $2,000 a month. It sounds small, but over 20, 30 years, that compounding effect can make a massive difference.
A massive difference. Time is your most powerful ally here. Starting early, even if the amounts feel modest, lets you really harness that compounding power. You don't have that pressure later on of needing huge sums just to catch up. It's about that steady, consistent effort.
Okay, got it. The 30s are definitely key. So then what are the common traps people fall into, the mistakes we often see during this decade? What should you actively try to avoid?
Oh, there are a few classic ones. Lifestyle inflation is probably the biggest.
Ah, yes. The tendency to spend more just because you earn more?
Exactly. Your income goes up, and suddenly, so does your spending. A bigger car, nicer apartment, more holidays, eating out more.
Which isn't necessarily bad in itself.
No, enjoying your hard-earned money is fine. But if your expenses rise just as fast as your income, you're not actually getting ahead. You're not increasing your ability to save and invest.
It's like that feeling of running faster but staying in the same place on the treadmill, financially speaking.
That's a perfect analogy. Another huge oversight, and a really critical one, is not having an emergency fund.
Right. The buffer for the unexpected.
Absolutely. Life throws curveballs, right?
Yeah.
Medical bills, suddenly losing your job, your car needing a major repair. It happens. And if you don't have that safety net, maybe 3 to 6 months of your essential living costs set aside, you're incredibly vulnerable. You end up having to borrow, often at high interest, and that can completely derail your financial plans.
Yeah, that can set you back years. Okay, what else? Any other major pitfalls?
Delaying insurance is another big one. Health insurance, term life insurance. The premiums generally go up as you get older.
So locking it in during your 30s is usually cheaper.
Much cheaper, typically. And it protects you and potentially your family from those massive, unexpected costs that could be financially devastating later on. It's a foundational piece.
Makes sense. And I guess we have to mention debt.
Yes, absolutely. Especially high-interest debt like credit cards. It's so easy to let balances creep up, maybe not fully understanding just how quickly that interest compounds against you.
Right. It works the opposite way to investment compounding.
Exactly. It becomes a massive drag on your finances, eating up money that you could be saving or investing instead.
Okay, so summing up the pitfalls. Watch out for lifestyle inflation. Definitely build that emergency fund. Get insurance sorted sooner rather than later. And be really careful with credit card debt.
Got it. Let's flip to the positive side. What practical steps can people take? What are some solid financial tips for your 30s?
Well, the good news is it doesn't have to be super complicated. A really fundamental first step is just understanding where your money actually goes.
Tracking your spending. Yes. Diligently tracking it for a month or two. Use an app, a spreadsheet, whatever works for you. But getting that clear picture is invaluable.
So, knowing your actual cash flow. Step
Yeah,
one.
absolutely. Once you know where it's going, you can start directing it. And the next priority is building that emergency fund we talked about.
That 3 to 6 month cushion.
Yep. Aim for that. Put it somewhere safe and accessible, like a high-yield savings account. Then, and this is crucial, start investing.
Don't wait.
Don't wait for the perfect time or until you have some big lump sum. Just start. Even small amounts, invested consistently, add up hugely over time.
Like we said with SIPs, maybe? Just making it automatic, a habit.
Exactly like that. Make it regular.
Yeah.
And alongside investing, make sure those insurance bases are covered. Health, term, life, especially if others depend on you.
Okay.
And of course, actively avoid bad debt. Aim to pay off those credit card balances in full every single month. Treat them like debit cards, essentially.
Those all feel very concrete, very actionable. Anything else you'd add to that list of practical advice?
Yes, actually. Something that's often overlooked, but it's fundamentally a financial strategy. Invest in yourself. Upgrade your skills.
Ah, interesting. How so?
Your ability to earn is probably your biggest financial asset, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So actively working to increase that earning potential through courses, learning new skills, certifications, networking that directly impacts your long-term financial health, it gives you more fuel for saving and investing.
That's a great point. Your career isn't separate from your finances. It's a key part of the engine. Okay, now for many people, especially if they're just starting, investing itself feels overwhelming.
Oh, definitely.
You hear about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, crypto, real estate. It's a lot. Where should a beginner in their 30s even start looking?
It absolutely can feel like a maze. But for most people starting out in their 30s, mutual funds are often a really good, accessible starting point.
Why mutual funds specifically?
Well, they offer instant diversification. You're not putting all your eggs in one basket. And within mutual funds, something like an index fund can be great for beginners.
What's an index fund, just quickly?
It's basically a type of mutual fund that aims to simply track a major market index, like the Nifty 50 or the Sensex or the S&P 500 internationally. So you get broad market exposure automatically, usually with quite low fees.
Okay, so less about picking individual winners and more about riding the market overall.
Exactly. And as we keep saying, starting with an SIP into a good, diversified mutual fund, maybe an index fund, is a really solid, disciplined approach for beginners. It takes a lot of the guesswork out.
So probably wise to maybe hold off on the really volatile stuff initially. Things like, I don't know, individual stock picking or crypto or futures and options trading.
I would generally say yes for beginners. Look, things like crypto or F&O trading, they might promise quick returns, but they come with significantly higher risk.
Right.
You really need to understand those markets inside out before diving in. It's usually better to build a solid foundation with less complex investments first. Diversification is key, but start with the core building blocks.
And just to be super clear on SIP's systematic investment plans, that's just the method, right? Investing a set amount regularly, like monthly.
Precisely.
And the benefit there is something called rupee cost averaging.
Yes, exactly. When the market price is lower, your fixed amount buys more units of the fund. When the price is higher, it buys fewer units.
So over time, it averages out your purchase price.
It does. It helps smooth out the bumps of market volatility and means you don't have to worry about trying to perfectly time the market, which is incredibly difficult, if not impossible.
Takes the emotion out of it a bit too, maybe.
A lot of the emotion, yes. It makes investing a consistent, disciplined habit, which is exactly what you want for long-term wealth building.
Okay, this has been incredibly helpful. So let's try and pull it all together. If we had to boil it down, what are the absolute core takeaways for our listeners in their 30s from everything we've discussed?
I think the number one thing is recognizing that your 30s are this truly pivotal financial decade. It really demands proactive planning, not just drifting along.
Right, being intentional.
Yes, and linked to that, starting to invest early and consistently is key. Even small amounts through things like SIPs can grow significantly over the long run because of compounding. Don't underestimate that.
Absolutely. But it's not just about investing, is it? The other pieces are just as important.
Oh, completely. Avoiding that lifestyle inflation trap, making sure your savings grow as your income does, is vital. And building that emergency fund, that's non-negotiable, really. It's your financial foundation.
Your safety net.
Exactly. Plus, getting your insurance sorted, health and term life while you're relatively young and it's more affordable, that protects everything else you're building.
And then managing debt smartly, especially credit cards, and remembering to invest in your own skills and earning power.
Couldn't agree more. Managing credit well and actively boosting your income potential. Those are huge levers for financial success. And finally, for investing beginners, don't feel overwhelmed. Mutual funds, especially index funds or using SIPs, offer a sensible, less complicated way to get started.
Fantastic. That really crystallizes it. This has been a really valuable deep dive. Thank you. So for you listening, maybe in your 30s right now, here's a final thought to chew on. What is one small, tangible financial habit you could start this week? Something that, like that compounding effect we talked about, will build and benefit you over the next 10 years. Maybe take a moment after this, reflect on where you are now, and just pick one thing, one actionable step you can take today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.